A doppelganger or doppelganger is a look-alike or double of a living person, sometimes portrayed as a paranormal phenomenon, usually seen as a harbinger of bad luck. The word doppelganger is a loan word from the German Doppelganger, consisting of the two substantives doppel, double, ganger, walker or goer. The singular and plural forms are the same in German, but English usually prefers the plural doppelgangers. The mythology of spirit doubles can be traced back thousands of years and was present in many cultures of the past, holding a prominent place in ancient legends, stories, artworks, and in books by various authors. Perhaps the most well-known reference to spirit doubles or alter egos is the doppelganger, a word still used today to refer to a person that is physically or behaviorally similar to another person. One of the most famous depictions of doppelgangers comes from the 1851 sketch and 1864 watercolor called How They Met Themselves by Dante Gabriel Rossetti. According to interpretation, two medieval lovers are walking through the woods at twilight when they encounter their doubles who glow supernaturally. The man draws his sword in astonishment, while his lover appears to collapse in a deathly swoon. Doppelganger imagery occurred in poems Rossetti admired, such as Elizabeth Barrett Browning's The Romaunt of Margaret and Poe's Silence. While doppelganger cases are said to be works of fiction, there are a number of real-life cases in which individuals claim to have met their sinister duo. Among the most noteworthy is Abraham Lincoln's experience, as chronicled by Noah Brooks in his book Washington in Lincoln's Time, 1895. According to his account, soon after Lincoln was elected in 1860, he arrived home one day and looked into the bureau mirror where he saw himself reflected in double. Lincoln said, "Nearly at full length, but my face had two separate and distinct images." Lincoln noticed that although the images were nearly identical, one was a little paler, say 5 shades, than the other. His wife was said to be very worried and told Lincoln she believed that the paleness of half the dual image was a bad omen, which meant that Lincoln would serve his first full term, but would not live to finish his second. The subject of the double has a long history, particularly in literature. In Greek mythology, Narcissus falls in love with his reflection, and in Gothic tales such as Edgar Allan Poe's William Wilson, 1839, James Hogg's Private Memoirs and Confessions of a Justified Sinner, 1824, Elizabeth Gaskell's The Poor Clare, 1856, and even Hans Christian Andersen's lesser-read fairy tale The Shadow, characters are haunted and followed by their often malevolent likenesses. However, the mythology of spirit doubles have far more ancient origins. One of the earliest references may be in the Zurvanite branch of Zoroastrianism. This sect distilled the general abstract duality of Zoroastrianism into a concept of manifest twins born of a monist time. In this cosmological model, the twins Ahura Mazda, Ormuzd, and Angra Mainyu, Ahriman, were co-eternal representatives of good and evil. How would you react when you see an exact copy of a loved one? Would you be able to distinguish the true from the impostor? Do we have a double of us in any part of the world? Is there any connection with the supernatural? There are many fascinating stories throughout the history of people claiming to have seen with their own eyes apparitions of themselves, a phenomenon commonly known as doppelganger. As we discussed in Doppelganger, Do Our Doubles Exist?, there are a lot of well-documented cases that suggest that the phenomenon of doppelgangers has been occurring for centuries. There are many theories as to why this happens, as well as controversies about how the phenomenon occurs. Some believe a doppelganger can only be seen by the person who is to be supplanted, but the reality is that doppelganger can appear to anyone. The phenomenon doppelganger is not very common, but when it happens it changes forever the life of all those who experience it. But in this publication we are going to focus on the paranormal connection, the emergence of the so-called evil twin or demonic entities. Could the doppelganger simply be the alter ego of a person manifesting himself? Or is it about demonic entities trying to supplant our identity with the sole purpose of causing harm in our name? A brief introduction. The term doppelganger was first used in 1796 in the novel Siebenkäse by Jean Paul, a German romantic novelist. The word doppelganger is actually two German words together, doppel, which means double, and ganger, meaning errant. In the novel, the main character is unhappy with his current marriage and his alter ego, referred to as his double in the book, convinces him to fake his own death. Ultimately, the protagonist falls in love with another person and marries after pretending his death. But apart from the novel, throughout the centuries there have been many stories that spoke of the mysterious appearance of the double of someone. Many of these stories include interaction with the doppelganger, thinking that he was the original person, while in other stories the true person encountered his own doppelganger. However, this phenomenon never had a name until the end of the 18th century, although it was produced centuries earlier. It is also important to note that the phenomenon doppelganger should not be confused with bilokation, which is when a person is seen in two different places at the same time. The doppelgangers and demonic entities in paranormal terms. A doppelganger is considered a ghostly double of a living person. According to experts, the appearance of a doppelganger can presage diseases, deaths, or some other tragedy for the person. And also, a doppelganger can also be a spirit, taking the form of someone to cause harm. In ancient Egyptian mythology, a ka was a tangible spirit double having the same memories and feelings as the person to whom the counterpart belongs. In one Egyptian myth entitled, The Greek Princess, an Egyptian view of the Trojan War, a ka of Helen was used to mislead Paris of Troy, helping to stop the war. Although the word doppelganger is commonly used to describe someone who looks or behaves in a similar way, in the paranormal world he refers to a possible ghost, spirit, or demonic entity, and it could have a very negative impact on the individual who is being copied. Some people believe that certain types of ghosts and spirits have the ability to assume whatever form they choose, so it is possible that they may appear as someone we know. However, not all can manifest fully in life, so it is difficult to say if it would be a true doppelganger. However, demonic entities are known to possess the ability to acquire solid human form in short periods of time. Some demons have the ability to take on whatever aspect they choose, so we would certainly be talking about doppelgangers. The Cherokee Indians have stories about the Nunnahi, Nunha. They are considered as a race of spirits that rarely communicate with humans. Many times, when they manifest as someone known, they even keep the same name as the person they are supplanting. It is believed that these entities are to help the human race, but without being offended, the person who offended them will die in a few days or weeks. This belief is similar to that held by some experts in the field today. If anyone sees their doppelganger, then it is an omen of their own death or that something very bad is about to happen. Some believe that the doppelganger announces bad events, but others believe that the doppelganger is only a messenger of terrible events that are about to happen. Another theory is that a doppelganger has no soul. This can have its origin in the belief that the doppelgangers have no reflection or shadows. Even ancient demonic entities such as incubi and succubi sometimes relate to the doppelganger phenomenon by their ability to adapt the physical form of their victim or persons close to them through their seductive efforts. Well-documented cases. As we have said before, the doppelgangers are seen as an omen of a tragedy, illness, or death of the person who copies. A number of very famous people have claimed to have seen their doppelganger before his death, such as, Abraham Lincoln said he saw his double in a mirror next to his own reflection in the year 1860, shortly after being President of the United States. His double looked gaunt, pale, and looked sick. Both Lincoln and his wife were very superstitious people, and they thought the appearance of the doppelganger was an omen of bad luck. Abraham Lincoln, the 16th President of the United States, was assassinated by John Wilkes Booth soon after beginning his second term in office. Elizabeth I of England is another person who claimed to see her doppelganger shortly before her death. One day Queen Elizabeth I entered her bedroom when she saw herself in bed. She was pale and sick. Shortly after this event, he became ill and died in the same bed. John Donne, a 16th century English poet, was visited by his wife's doppelganger while in Paris. She appeared with a newborn baby in her hands. Coincidentally, Donne's wife was pregnant at the time, but the apparition would be an omen of great sadness. At the very moment the doppelganger appeared, his wife gave birth to a dead child. Percy Bysshe Shelley, considered one of the greatest poets of the English language, met his doppelganger in Italy. The double pointed silently toward the Mediterranean Sea. Not long after, and shortly before his 30th birthday in 1822, Shelley died in an accident, drowned in the Mediterranean Sea. Regardless of the theories and cases well documented throughout history, for the most part a doppelganger seems to be flesh and blood, not an apparition or a ghost. But unfortunately, because the phenomenon doppelganger is a very strange phenomenon and difficult to investigate. When the encounter occurs, usually people do not realize it until it is too late. It is for this reason that one must be very careful if one day we see our double, could be a demonic entity materialized in our reality.